saying thank you, Aramide, for this opportunity. Um, I'm really stoked about this one in particular because this is a woman who has just done so well over the years, and I have admired her for years. So to actually be on a in a session like this, hearing her speak is really gratifying. It makes me very happy right now. But I just want to talk a bit about why I joined Niger Startups because I believe I'm one of the newest members. I launched I launched my media strategy media firm last year, well, about 2 years ago, but I didn't do much till about last year. And then I really went in this year. This year I got the office space. I hired staff that were not on a contract basis. I'm like, you know what, we're doing this, So got staff, started to chase clients and sign people up and just offer my services to them as a media firm. I also have the global director of content role at MyPad, where I support the all the content needed for our clients there as well. So it's really like a double-barreled life I'm living right now. But I realized that I didn't have a community that spoke to what I was doing. Young entrepreneurs just trying to see how far we can go. I told my staff, I said, we're all on a 6-month probation. Like I'm also on the probation, 6 months from now. We'll see how it goes. And maybe all of us will still be here, or all of us will be saying bye-bye or whatever it is. But in the past few months, I've learned so much. I'm really quiet in the group because you guys are just spitting wisdom, Aramide, I must say. And it's just beautiful to be around the energy and every advice, every opportunity that I see is like, wow, I didn't know this, and I probably wouldn't have known this if I wasn't in this group. So again, I just want to say thank you for the wonderful job you are doing with Niger Startups. I don't know if you know how incredible the platform is. I'm here to tell you it's super incredible. I'm learning a lot. I've met people. I remember the brunch we had, 2 weeks ago or so, was it 3 weeks ago? And just being around the energy there and people just doing their own thing and networking, connecting. I made friends from the brunch. I'm just really happy to be here. So I'm here to listen. I'm here to learn. I'm here to connect with more people and to just see how the afternoon goes. So I'll hand over to you, Aramide. I believe you do a fantastic job of introducing our guest today. Thank you.
Thanks, Toyosi, and hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Welcome. Thanks for making the time. Special thanks to our guest, Ndidi, who was able to make herself available at such short notice. We've been so inspired by her over the years. I'm sure she hears it all the time, but honestly speaking, hand on heart, she's such an inspiration to many of us. People who've been in business and professional lives 15, 20 years still look up to her like. So it's just a pleasure to have her as a special guest on this roundtable today. And as you know, we started the roundtable in January to just learn more. I mean, we are learning. Everybody's on a journey, but it's always great when you can get leadership insights, like authentic leadership insights from tried and tested veterans. And I see her as a veteran, definitely, be it in the consulting, development, agro space. And it would just be great to hear from her. I can see all these names. Some people, we don't even see them come out on these things, but a lot of names are coming out today. So quite happy because we know it's going to be an interesting roundtable. And yes, so we aim to wrap up about 1:45 to 10:50, and hopefully we can get as much in terms of questions and a conversation with her. And so, as you know, I'm sure her bio had been shared on the groups and on social media, but I will just read a short excerpt. She's an expert on social innovation, African agriculture and nutrition, entrepreneurship and youth development. She has over 25 years of international development experience and is a recognized serial entrepreneur, author, public speaker, and consultant. Sorry about the noise behind me. She started her career as a management consultant, as you know. She returned to Nigeria. and she was a director at Faith Foundation. She established Leap Africa. Some of you know about Ace Foods, which she co-founded. She is still co-founder and executive chair at Sahel Consulting. But even then, more than that, she's gone on to sit on so many boards. Both within the continent and globally as well. She serves on the board of Rockefeller Foundation, Global Alliance for Improved Nutrition, Nigerian Breweries, the Young Global Leaders World Economic Forum, so many different boards, Nestle previously, African Philanthropy Forum. So such a pleasure to have her on here. She's also a renowned speaker, and more recently, she's founded different platforms. The most recent one, I have the name here. I was looking at it today. Changing Narratives Africa, committed to changing global mindsets about Africa, showcasing the continent's contribution to the global food ecosystem. Because food security, as we all know, is a major thing right now. So it'll be great to hear from her. And more finally, she's also a visiting, I don't want to say the wrong thing. She's currently a visiting scholar and at the Max Bell School of Public Policy at McGill University. So apart from just, doing all the amazing things in the corporate space and entrepreneurship and development space, she's now giving back in form of structured programs to international policy and would-be policymakers. So again, it's a pleasure to have you, Ndidi. Sorry, I've gone on and on, but I just had to. You're welcome to the Niger Startups African Business Leader Roundtable May edition. It's a pleasure to have you here with us.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here. And Ramide, I know you have been a champion for SMEs for a long time. And I know that my teams all look up to you and the work you're doing. So thank you. And thank you to Toyosi. And thank you to the rest of the team for this warm welcome. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. So we'll just go straight into it in the interest of time. There's a few questions we have, and we'll maybe Toyosi and I will alternate at some point. But my first question to you is a broad question, and many of us are itching to know, because I guess there's no science behind it. But how do you continue to grow and develop as a leader? If you had to mentor someone or engage with someone who is building their leadership capacity and they have been given some responsibility, what would you say to them?
So I'd say there are 4 key ways that I continue to grow, and I advise all those in my ecosystem to grow. The first one is you have to be a lifelong learner. Aramide talked about my current role as a visiting scholar at McGill. Everybody's like, Ndidi, why are you doing this? I'm like, I need to learn and grow. I need to expose myself to people who are learning and growing. And so actually formally enroll in fellowships. And there are lots of fellowships out there. I've done 2 fellowships at the Harvard Kennedy School, where I wrote 2 books, one on food entrepreneurs and scaling, one on social innovation and scaling. And while I'm at McGill, I'm doing a lot of work on succession and SMEs and how SMEs can shape policy, because as you know, that's been a huge challenge in our ecosystem. Many SMEs feel powerless, macroeconomic conditions in the country, et cetera, et cetera. So I've been spending that time learning how SMEs all over the world shaping policy. So I think learning and growing, commits to learning and growing, enrolling in fellowships, reading, just immersing yourself in environments that are not your typical day-to-day. That's number 1. Number 2 is find a community of learners, people who are going somewhere. And I've created those communities, and I've been blessed to be invited into some of those communities. In Lagos, I'm part of a group called HN Girls. A friend started it. Another group called Power Girls. Another girl started it. And they're amazing communities of support. We sharpen each other. In the beginning of the year, we actually set goals, and we hold ourselves accountable for our professional, personal, spiritual goals. It's amazing to have those accountability partners. I always say you have to create that village of support. And then the third is really to stay humble, realizing that you can learn from people younger than you. We always look to mentors and role models as to people who are older than us, but there's so much reverse mentoring going on. And I learn from so many young people. I surround myself with young people who challenge me, and I like to be around people who challenge me. And fourth is your teams. They always say if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. And I believe that. I like to surround myself with people who are more intelligent than I am, more visionary, more hardworking, more passionate. And so I hire for that. I hire for hunger and humility, and emotional intelligence. And it's really been a fulfilling journey to be surrounded with such rock stars in all the companies that we've started.
That's amazing. So how do you know to look out for these things? So this being in the right room, being in the right space, having the right people around you. How did you learn that? Because a lot of people are running solo because they believe other people will pull them back or stop them from moving.
So I think the first mistake we often make is thinking we can get anything done on our own. The work is too much. It's overwhelming. It's crippling. In fact, sometimes it can crush you. You can work for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and the work is not done. So you only get things achieved by surrounding yourself with others. And I believe that you attract people who, I call them mission-driven high achievers. So I'll give you an example of my latest startup, Ramide mentioned. In fact, I have two startups at Ramide. One is called Wealth for Impact, which is actually quite relevant to many of you. And we're having a webinar next on the 7th, which I would encourage all of you to join in on succession. Because many people think, they start doing succession when they're ready to retire. You start from the day you start your business, thinking about when you're going to exit. So Wealth for Impact, and then Changing Narratives Africa. And with Changing Narratives Africa, God laid this idea on my heart last June. I was just part of the UN Food System Summit, often the only African in the room, virtual rooms, and just really upset about how Africa was being painted. And this has been going on for a while, the face of Africa being a hungry child, the face of poverty being a female farmer from Africa. And, it's a single story. It's a dangerous single story in the public domain. So I posted on LinkedIn, I want to start a new organization focused on changing narratives. I got 150 responses. I was like, people were calling me like old friends. Ndidi, how can I get involved? Ndidi, I want to support this. Ndidi, this is required. I was like, wow, where am I going to start? And the ideas that came back, so many. And then we got volunteers out of the woodwork. People who said, I want to help, I want to help, I want to help. Do you know, this is the first month we can even pay one person. Right? We finally got funding to pay one person, but almost a year later, and it's been volunteers. We launched just, a fellowship. We're getting products on shelves. We are doing media. We're doing convenings, and it's been volunteers. And oftentimes Nigerians ask me, how do you get volunteers? I'm like, people are willing to support causes that they believe in. They're willing to get behind individuals that they trust. And we also have to get out of their way. So I don't get involved. I don't get in their way. Give them the credit. They're doing the good work. So we have a part-time executive director, Lucy. She's been a volunteer since August last year, right? So when she has meetings, she has the meeting. So I'm empowering people. And I think a lot of the biggest challenges we face, Toyosi, is that we want to be Augusta, Madam, Chief, Doctor. And everybody has to say, yes, ma, yes, sir. Benisa, yes, sir. You look so beautiful today, ma. If that's what you want, you're never going to attract mission-driven high achievers. If you want to, I share the limelight with people. I get out of their way and let them shine. I laugh all the time. I'm on a plane coming back from somewhere and I see some team member in an organization I've started, and I'm in the airport with them, and I'm like, where are you going? They're like, I'm going here. Where are you coming from? I'm like, fantastic. Isn't that makes me so proud? You know what I mean? That things are happening. I don't have a clue. It's happening without me. Fantastic. Let it continue to happen. But many of us hold on so tightly to what we've started, our dreams, our visions, not realizing that God uses us as a vessel of honor to get his work done on the earth. And if you remember that, it changes your mindset. It doesn't mean you're not going to have bad eggs. And I've had many, many bad eggs who have hurt me deeply. But it doesn't stop me from believing that there are lots of good people out there who are excited about a mission and a vision and are willing to jump on board and put in their passion and their vision. But you have to check for this in your interview process. You have to ask lots of unusual questions. you have to do some reference checks, right? I always do reference checks and have my teams do reference checks. I told you that I'm not even looking for what you studied. I don't care what you studied in school. I'm looking for passion, vision, humility, hunger, emotional intelligence. And I've come a long way. So you can be an accountant who studied accounting, but God, that's not where God wants you to be. And it comes through, right, in the work, in the way you talk, the way you work, etc. So let's not look at the surface. Let's look at the heart. And the last thing I'll say, Toya, is if someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. Many of us think that we will be able to teach, help our employees repent and transform in our lifetime. That's not your job. God can deal with that. So very early on, if people show you that you made a hiring mistake, please exit them into their destiny. Because if you try to reform them within your organization, you might end up with a big, big challenge on your hands. And I assure you that when we have tried to do this, we've regretted it. It's like saying I'm getting into a marriage and I'm going to change my husband. You can't change your husband. God can change your husband. How do you think you're going to change an employee? If somebody was a thief before they came to you, it's under you that they will become a saint. So definitely it's something to have a lot of wisdom and discernment about.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah.
So amazing. I really want to, those are very insightful points. But I want to drill down on this people issue further because there's this case. I mean, I just came from a conference and the amount of people who are committed to the cause and delivered because of the vision of the leader, it was clear that vision is everything. But more than that is building that staying power in this generation of today, where you have people who they get excited at the trend and, something is happening, is being launched, they want to be part of it. But then how do you, I hear you about bad eggs, they are bad eggs, but how do you build that commitment? You can't force commitment, but then you find people who can be flighty, and you're trying to build an organization or a cause. So what is the ingredient for that? Because I'm still looking.
I think there's a unique challenge of our time, which is obviously the Gen X's and the millennials that we're learning how to work with. But I would say that for me, the biggest way to build commitments and staying power is giving people ownership. So in our case, in for-profits, it's actually equity very early on that is vested over a period. In the nonprofit sector, it's really giving them responsibility and visibility. Human beings love visibility. They love to be celebrated. So even I'll give you two very practical examples. At Sahel Consulting, we have a quarterly publication. It's a free publication on different topics. So we've done on youth, women, nutrition. The most recent was on the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement and what the food ecosystem can do in that range. And our staff write the articles, right? And then their names are on the articles. And the articles are also published in newspapers and our staff's names are on the articles and their pictures are on the articles. It doesn't say Ndidi Nwuneli. It says, Aramide Abe, or it says, Ife Oluwa, it says Aisha Hadeja, it says Temi. Having their own names out there in the public domain, having them rotate who's the publisher of the quarterly, gives them, the glory for the good work they've put in. Many of us I have friends whose staff do all the work and then they are the ones who are positioned in the limelight, right? And it's not right? Because people don't want to be hidden. They want to be celebrated. They want to be appreciated. And if you don't have a lot of money to, fly them to Dubai for, retreats, then maybe you can give them those opportunities to have that visibility and that credibility and ownership of their work. So that's one. The second is really this equity thing. Many of us are very worried about giving equity. And I'll say, be careful, don't give equity too early. Give them time to vest and commit. But it also makes them have ownership because they know they're building a future for themselves, their families, and a future that can, be very profitable for them. We often laugh about the employee number 6 at Facebook. They are multi-billionaire today or millionaire, or the employee number 3. When I was just in Silicon Valley and people were saying, I was number 3 employee at eBay. You know what? That's an indirect, way to say, I'm not on your level. And that's the truth. The truth is come in early, build something, it becomes the eBays, the Facebooks, the Yahoos, and the Twitters that we celebrate today. But if that stock option is put on the table, it changes the way people think.
Thanks so much. Trish, do you want to go or should I go? Let me go. Okay, so yeah, I mean, there's so many questions in my head, but I'm trying to be structured in my thinking. So we see you as the agribusiness. Well, I see you as the agribusiness darling of Africa. Like, the person who knows everything about agribusiness, the reason why we're where we are, and all of that. And there's this whole narrative about food security. It's almost like there's an alarm ringing, and very few people can hear it. A few people, maybe like President Adesina, keeps talking about it. You keep talking about, agriculture and the need for us to invest in it on the continent. Like, what will it take? I'm drifting. It's not so much a leadership question, but what will it take and what is needed for agriculture to be really the next tech, right? Like, why are we still deprioritizing it when we have so many resources? Like, what is needed? I guess that's what I'll say. Sorry, I kind of blindsided you there.
No. I think it's a great question. And just to preface, I didn't study agriculture, and this is where it links to a leadership question. Agriculture was my favorite subject in high school, but I didn't study it. And I became committed to it through, God's calling, really, and then built the expertise, which is a message to all of us. You can build an expertise in an area that God has called you to work in by reading, by learning, by growing, by learning from others and challenging yourself. Right now, when we think about the world's food crisis, which has further been exacerbated by climate change and what's going on in the Ukraine-Russia axis, where they contribute so much to fertilizer, wheat, etc., we see a sense of urgency in our own backyard. I mean, nobody has to tell any Nigerian or any African that we're in a food crisis. Last year, how much was a crate of eggs? We were still shouting that a crate of eggs was maybe 800 naira. Now, it's 2.5. I am complaining, and I don't consider myself the lowest income population earner. Eggs are out of reach for the average Nigerian. We can say the same for so many foods that we consume. Somebody was telling me Titus. They use Titus as the benchmark because Titus was considered affordable and accessible for the average Nigerian. Food inflation is double digits. Now, we're naturally endowed for agricultural excellence, and this is one sector that we should be thriving in. But yet, the reason we don't focus on it is we keep on thinking it's just agriculture, and I believe it's a food ecosystem. Food ecosystem definitely is a very profitable industry. And when we think about it, it's not just farming, it's processing, it's logistics, it's financing, it's farm to body, no longer farm to fork, from farm to body. What does the food do when it enters your body? What impact does it have on your liver, on your gut, on your mental health? Food is medicine. And so when we think about it, statistics have shown time and time again that countries can evolve very dramatically, finding what their core competencies, their competitive advantage. And in our case, it's food. And so why haven't we invested in it? Aramide, you and I know some of the backstory in our continent. Many people are looking for very quick money. They're looking for, opportunities for kickbacks and where you can hide resources, especially in the public sector. And unfortunately, the agriculture sector doesn't provide as many opportunities. This is a long haul. You don't make money overnight unless you're growing marijuana. And there are countries that have decided to grow marijuana as a medicinal drug. But in most sectors, it's patient capital, 5 to 7 years turnaround before you become profitable. And processing is hugely profitable if you can do it well and efficiently, because we are such most people are looking for convenience. They want to be able to cook their food quickly. They want to be able to eat healthy and nutritious food that's well packaged. They want snacks that are healthy. So there are lots of opportunities. And from where I sit, it's going to take bold and courageous leadership from state levels, federal levels, to not only create an enabling environment for ecosystems to thrive, but it's going to take young people who say, I am committed to growing in this sector. And we're starting to see that. On the Nourishing Africa platform, you see a lot of young people across Africa who have started agri-businesses and who are thriving. And there's so much funding available right now for entrepreneurs who are interested in the agri-business landscape. So I'll encourage you to check out nourishingafrica.com, search by funding. So many calls, so many startup funds. And I know that the team at Nourishing Africa has reached out to Aramide to see how can we do more to partner so that you can channel a lot of the support for entrepreneurs who are interested in agribusiness to help them thrive at this time. I wrote a book on scaling in this sector for agribusinesses. Happy to hand you some copies around the day to give your most devoted members who are interested in this sector.
Thank you, Ndidi, and thank you. Thanks for flagging that, because I did make a mental note to coordinate with the team, and we're supposed to speak on a podcast. There's a few things we're doing together, so I will follow up. Thank you for that. Let me just hand over to Toyosi.
Yeah, so thank you, Ndidi. I've heard you speak multiple times, and just listening to you speaking now, one thing that comes across is your confidence. You speak so authoritatively, like, I know what I'm saying. Do not argue with me. Now, there's a question here which sort of ties into my question is, did you ever deal, this is the question, did you deal with uncertainties of what your purpose was and how did you overcome it? I want to ask, did you ever have imposter syndrome, and how have you become this confident woman who speaks so authoritatively?
Thank you for the compliments. I actually don't think I sound that confident. And I know people who know me who have joined. I'm wondering why they're joining to listen to me speak today. So I'm sure they're wondering, how is she going to answer this question? But the truth is, I would say that, number one, I have to give credit to my parents. I come from a very close-knit family, 4 girls and a boy, and we're all given an opportunity to have a voice. All of us are very confident when we speak with each other, and we have very healthy debates. So I think how you're raised is very important. I was never raised to feel like, as you know, I should be seen and not heard, etc. The second is really, my confidence is rooted in my faith and my relationship with God. You know, I gave a TED Talk recently. It was just released about 3 weeks ago. But I remember the day of the TED Talk, I actually had a really rocky day. I got, a call from one of my funders. I was talking to lawyers. We're being accused falsely of some things. And I've never been accused falsely, of anything. 25 years of an impeccable reputation and, in the business world when it comes to ethics, right? And then you have this going on. And I was shaking, literally shaking before I got on stage. And with TED, you're supposed to memorize your talk. You're not supposed to read from any paper. And when I got there and gave my talk, I have no clue what I said. I really don't know. And somebody came up to me and said, "You sound so confident. You sound like you're not afraid of any man." And I said, "All glory to God. It can only be God, because me and you know that it was God." I cannot say that my confidence is rooted in anything but God, because there are many, many times when I feel I do have the imposter syndrome. I was just at Davos, and I tell you, when you're the only Black person in a room in the 21st century, with CEOs of major companies, and they're talking about Africa, and you're just wondering what is going on. Now, their net worth is billions of dollars, right? Billions. Then some of them, their net worth is your country's GDP, and you're opening your mouth to challenge them. It's really God. And I feel like more of us, and I always say this, I say, you guys think I'm an exception. There are millions of women from my country just like me. They just don't have the platform. And that's one of my hopes and dreams, is to really create more platforms for women. And I do nominate a lot of women for opportunities, because I really believe it's time for there to be tens and tens of us in those rooms, not one. And that we just have to own our space. Nobody, so I say one thing I've learned very easily is, like, how can somebody who has come to Nigeria for 1 week be an expert on Nigeria and be speaking so confidently? And me, who live here, at least majority of my year, I'm stammering, and that's why we have to write books. We have to write op-eds. I have 3 op-eds I'm going to write coming out of Davos. One of them is, what does regenerative agriculture mean for Africa? Because everybody's talking about regenerative. All these global CEOs talked about regenerative agriculture and defining it for Africa. And I'm like, no, we Africans have to define it for ourselves. I'm just using an example. If we don't write, we don't speak up, we don't have our voices heard, then people make decisions that affect us for the rest of our lives. And I'm very frustrated about that. So there's no time for imposter syndrome anymore. You own the space. If it's Africa, you're an expert. You're an expert in Africa because you live in Africa, right? You're an expert on being a woman because you're a woman. You've been a woman for all these years. You're an expert on being Black because you're Black. So I think oftentimes we kind of feel like I have to have gotten a PhD in what it means to be on ethnic minority relationships and gender studies before I can open my mouth to talk about gender. No, provided you're talking about it from your own personal experiences, you don't need data. You can command authority based on your personal experiences, and with God giving you the opportunity and the platforms, walk in and own the space.
Absolutely love it. Absolutely, yeah. Thank you.
So amazing. And I also love what you said about raising other women up and recommending them. That is awesome. And as you were talking, it just took me to this whole thing about being relevant in your space and in the global space, because obviously, clearly you're relevant globally. But then as an individual or a budding business leader trying to make their way, maybe, okay, to the glory of God, you might have even studied abroad and then moved back. But the perils of just the day-to-day living in Africa, if it's not diesel, is one thing, is like, so how do you maintain that sort of like being on top of your game, just challenging yourself and your mind? Because it's easy for being in a developing environment, just the day-to-day challenges that you don't face in the West, to kind of just make you forget like the things that you would typically like stand for, the vision. It's so easy. It's so easy. So I hope I asked the question okay enough for you to understand, but it's something that a lot of us face, just challenging our minds and just continue to stay relevant in the global space or even nationally with everything that we're dealing with in the developing world. So if you don't mind telling us how, please.
Yeah, so I think there are a couple of things. Number one, I have an accountability partner. I've had the same accountability partner for about 25 years. And it helps to have an accountability partner. I don't know if you all have one, but someone who you've empowered. I also prayer partner and accountability partner who you've empowered to hold you accountable, especially around ethics, around making the right decisions, around staying grounded, around remembering your why. And that person reminds you of why you're still here and why you're doing what you're doing, because there are many days you want to give up. And there are many days you make mistakes and you want to backtrack. So for me, an accountability partner, prayer partner is critical. And having someone who sticks with you because they can remind you of how far you've come and remind you of what God has said and remind you of where God is taking you. The second thing is really having strong team members. There are many times I want to give up. The team members don't want to give up. My husband and I have co-founded 2 companies together. There are days I want to give up. He doesn't want to give up. Days he wants to give up. I don't want to give up. If we didn't have each other, we would have given up. I'm not saying everybody needs a partner, but you also have a board. And I always tell startups, please have a board. I remember when I started Leap Africa, we had the most amazing board. Oftentimes I would cry at the board meetings. It was like a therapy session, right? I was 28 when I started Leap. I was 25 when Fola Diola invited me to come and run Faith Foundation. So going through those processes, trial by fire, I think really helped having a strong board. And the same with Ace Foods. When we started Ace Foods, we had a very good board from our pioneer board. And many times, and I'll tell you guys a quick story, because many startups they look at your life and they think, oh, what a golden life. We started a company and our first products were actually going to be jams. I don't know how many of you know. We've had many products that you don't see in the markets: jams, peanut butter, spicy peanut butter, because I love Osoji. I'm Igbo, proudly Igbo. We had pepper sauce because we hated to see Tabasco on every table in every restaurant in Ikoyi and Lekki. Anyway, and then we got a letter suing us. Brand name was Honor, which means jewel in Igbo. Ace was not supposed to be a brand name. Ace was the company name. And we got a letter from a company suing us, and it was Promaceter. And they have a brand called Onga. And we had gotten a trademark. They didn't have a trademark. And they said, we're going to sue you. You're going to even pay our legal fees. And they hired a big time law firm. And here we are. Our salary, Mezu's salary was 50K. Mine was 50K. 50K Naira. because we had to do formal salaries and then sweat equity so that we're calculating. And so our board said, you guys cannot fight this. It's going to take so much time and energy to fight Promasseter. Just let it go. You already have ACE as your parent name. So we actually gave up our brand name. And Promasseter became one of our early customers, buying bulk from us. But it was a very painful thing because we had done really great branding, and we felt it was a better brand name than ACE. And that's just one example. We also had to give up our jams because sugar, what we wrote our business plan was 6,000 naira a bag. Because it's a monopolistic industry, it went to 12,000 naira a bag overnight. Now jam is 50% sugar. We wanted to use fresh fruits. We found that most of the jam in the market was imported colored water, flavored water with sugar. So we had to make a decision. Could we continue with this product, or do we just have a niche customer, expatriate customer base? Because we're making pineapple jam, pawpaw jam, agbalumo jam, really phenomenal jam. And eventually we said, this is a niche product. It's not going to become a mass market product. The average Nigerian doesn't know what jam is. And just because I eat jam in my home doesn't mean everybody wants it for breakfast. And so really being able to pivot quickly and early under the guidance of a board was very, very helpful, because we would have made more mistakes. We did make a lot of mistakes. Half of the equipment in our factory was never used after that, as you can imagine. But it just taught us some very valuable lessons. So the point is, have a board, have individuals who hold you accountable, who encourage you, who support you, who, when you want to give up, are your key defenders, and who challenge you to dream big and to keep dreaming and to keep pushing and to keep aspiring. I mean, Leap Africa's board would ask you, your name is Leap Africa, but you're only working in Nigeria. Now Leap works in 6 African countries. Or one of our board members at Ace Food said, when are you guys going to move from a pilot to an actual business? When is this annual revenue going to become your monthly revenue? When you have people who challenge you, and so many of my startup friends, they resist having boards. They resist it. Please do not. Leap has a great book called Get On Board. Please get a copy of that book. We've written so many books to support entrepreneurs such as yourself. Very practical guide for building high impact board of directors. Trust me, this has been the secret to our ability to raise funding, for our ability to grow, for our ability to have profitable businesses that will outlive us. Having those board members, having those prayer partners and accountability partners is key.
Thank you so much, Ndidi. Definitely even mindful of the time, because I know you have to shoot off in like less than 10 minutes. And we want to take 1 or 2 questions from the audience. So while they're gathering their thoughts and putting their questions in the chat, or maybe the Q&A, maybe one more question from me, and I'm sure people ask you or don't ask you, but just kind of look, have you always kind of been open about sharing your faith when you talk about business? Like, what was the game changer for you, if maybe at some point you just decided to, like, what made you decide, you know what, this is what it is, and just not hold back? Like, what helped you in doing that? Because I'm sure some people are there thinking, oh, wow, like with every answer, she's very clear as to the source and all of that. I think it'll be important to hear from you while we take 1 or 2 questions from the audience. Thank you.
Yeah, so I think for me, it's really been all God from day one. So even when I was at McKinsey, I started a Bible study at like 7 a.m. Mostly secretaries would come. But I don't think I've ever hated my faith. But I think becoming an entrepreneur, if anything, it exposed me to demons on earth. I'm sure all of you who have businesses in Nigeria know that if God is not your source and strength, I don't know how you get up every morning, right? Just the uncertainty in our context. Faith is what keeps you going every single day, right? So I have realized that if God is not the foundation, the center, the front, the back, and I'm not someone who just calls God like a lot of people. These are his businesses, right? And he fights my battles. And I'll tell you, just in the last, 48 hours, I got some friends together. I was like, we need your prayers. I got some spouses together. We need prayers. So ultimately, it's about who gets the glory. Is it Ndidi that gets the glory? Absolutely not. I can't, because I'm not the one doing most of this. So all of it is God. And I have to remember to give God the glory all the time. And when I don't, he tells me I can use anybody. I can use anybody. Don't ever think you're special. And this is a message to all of us. God can use anybody. He wants willing and available vessels who are going to be obedient. And if we start thinking it's about us, we kind of, in a second, in my own case, it just takes a few seconds and I'm debased, I'm humbled overnight. So I think it's really important that we keep grounded, we keep disciplined, we keep obedient, and we recognize the voice of God and try to stay, steadfast in our faith. And that's what has kept me going and what has kept me to this point. So I don't know if I've answered your question, but I have another book. I'll give some free copies to Aramide called Working for God in the Marketplace. It's a practical guide for Christians who want to reflect their faith in the business world.
Thank you, Ndidi. Thanks so much.
I'd like a copy, please.
We shall see.
one copy for me, please.
There's a question, definitely. There's a question from the audience. Did you deal with uncertainties of what your purpose was, and how did you overcome it? Because there's a lot more people who are unclear these days. I was on that journey as well, just not clear. And one day I just was clear. So it would be nice to hear from you. I'm encountering more and more people who, that clarity thing, in fact, this clarity thing is even a business now where some people sell how you can get clarity. So for someone who maybe might have been on that journey or not, it would be good to hear from you as to how.
Yeah, I love this question, and it would have been the whole topic for today. But I have to say, I always tell people, sit down and make a list. What makes you angry? What gives you joy? What are you willing to do for free? What comes naturally to you? Remove all other voices, what people will say, whether I can make money, what my parents will say, what my in-laws will say, what my spouse will say. Remove all other voices and try to really hear God's voice and make a list of the things that make you angry. So for me, I've been propelled by anger. That's a very strong emotion. Other people are propelled by love and joy, right? What gives them joy, what they're willing to do for free. It's so important that people recognize that God has given you something unique to you. So while you love cooking, I might not, right? And it gives you joy to cook. It gives you joy to entertain other people. I'm just using that as an example. Everybody says to you that you do it so well, and yet you're resisting it because it just comes too easy. If it comes easily, that's fantastic. Maybe you should listen. So I always say then prioritize, rank the issues, rank the opportunities, rank them. And when you remove all other voices, it becomes clear, because then you only hear the voice of God. Because what has struck me is so many people are worried. I didn't enter agriculture because we're going to make money, right? I got into it because I was angry. I was angry that we're importing most of the processed food we ate, that we had such high rates of unemployment and malnutrition. That propelled me, not because I love food or I'm a chef, but because I thought this was an opportunity to solve a problem, and God gave me a burden. I always say people will see Gucci bags or Prada shoes. I don't see that. I see hunger, right? What does God allow you to see that others can't see? So for me, it's been hunger all the way. And God has revealed to me in time what he wants me to do. So it's not one thing, but it's one thing at a time. You can't do it all. And that's why I say prioritize. So you start with, for me, I started with youth development, right? That made me angry. Then I did a lot in gender. Now I'm doing a lot in ag and food. And what next? God knows. So you have to be open and flexible to what God has in store, and be patient to listen each time as he moves you and propels you from solving one problem to solving another. So I think we'll have to do a whole new course on that one, because another session on that one, because it's definitely really, really interesting.
Yeah, it would really be nice to have you on for longer. I wonder if there's one live question we can take. If you're disciplined enough to keep your question to less than a minute, please raise your hand up so we can ask it live, and then we can wrap up. So anybody? Anyone? Okay. So Bumi, if you can commit to keeping your question super short, please go ahead.
Thank you. So thank you, Ndidi. Everything you've said just resonates with me. Indeed, one of the things that really drives me is anger. And so I've got quite a number of ideas. And I've been working on a few of them. But what happens when you are doing it, you are not getting you don't have enough funds. You're not sure how to take it forward. you're doing it, but it's only at a small scale, and you can see that there's a very big need. How do you grow it? I think you may have answered some of it as you talked about having boards and everything, but how do you go about making it, like getting the funding, being out there and making sure that you're actually making an impact, that it doesn't just end as passion that didn't go anywhere?
Yeah, so that's a lot. There are lots of pieces to that question. And let me tell you, I'm so excited that you're propelled by anger. And if you put in place the systems and structures for your vision and galvanize a board, mission-driven high achievers, the funding will come. In fact, you'll have more than enough funding than what you can even handle. And that's what I've seen in the work that I've done. You have to turn away funding. Trust me, and I have a book for you called Reaching Millions with Impact. So please stay in touch with Aramide I've promised some books today so that she can get a book. After you read that book, then we can talk, right? We can have a conversation. In the back of the book, I have like 20 pages of funding sources. And I put that in the book because I felt that so many of us don't know. And I'll give you just two. One is, Ashoka will actually pay your salary for 3 years while you start a venture. Echoing Green will actually pay you up to $80,000 a year while you start your venture. Draper Richards Kaplan will pay up to $150,000 a year, you as the founder, while you start your venture. They have to be nonprofits, it's competitive, but there are people in our ecosystem who have gotten this funding and support, and we know many of them, right? And then not enough Africans who are putting their face forward or their foot forward to say, I want to do stuff that works in my context and I can do it well. And I'm going to amplify my voice. And it just helps you to have that salary for 3 years to really drive your venture 110%. And so many of us don't know that there's this funding available to help us, right?
Yeah, thank you.
And there are lots of, so I have 20 pages at the back of my book because I felt like, why should we hide this? Why do people start, hide information from each other when we should actually be sharing this information and helping each other get better? It doesn't make any sense to me. So anyway, these books are, if you buy them on Amazon, it's like $40 because the publisher just went crazy and I don't get any of the royalties, but I have rights to West Africa. So I sell them for like $2,000. But I told Aramide I'll donate 5 copies of each. I don't know how many copies I said I'll donate of each, but you have to come and pick them up from my office. So Nourishing Africa has a lot of funding sources. And unfortunately, I have to run. I have another engagement. So good to connect with all of you. And God bless.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much. It was such a pleasure to have Ndidi on. In fact, as she was talking, I realized that a great way to answer a lot of questions is when you author a book, because then you can answer questions a lot of people are asking you, right? So that is such a smart way. For people who are thinking, what should I write? Maybe consider that. If people come to you a lot to ask questions, I think you should compile the answers in a book. But again, so sorry it couldn't be longer. I just wanted to say thanks to everyone. It was so amazing. Wish we could have her for 3 hours and we still wouldn't finish. And thank you so much, Toyosi, our newbie, who was open to co-anchoring today. It will be nice for those who are not members, please consider joining. I think, Yemi, you can put the website on the chat. Please join our community. It's very vibrant. There's so much going on. We banter about amazing things and share and glean from each other's wisdom. And it's so nice to have people from South Africa, from the UK, from Zimbabwe, just, joining us today. So please do endeavor to participate in our next month's session, and we'll definitely be in touch with you once you reach out to us over website, email, whatever it is. So have a lovely afternoon, and thank you again. Thank you, team, as well. Niger Startups team. All right. Bye, everyone. Bye. Bye. Thank you. Yeah, I saved the chat. Very good session. I just saved the chat.
Thank you, Aramide.
Thank you. Well done, Yemi.